Emma Parker felt something shift inside her the moment the first snow of December drifted across the small Vermont town she and her husband Noah had called home for years. Their house was warm, the kind of warm that came from years of shared meals, shared blankets, shared routines, but lately that warmth felt like it lived in the walls, not between them. Emma noticed it in the small pauses, the soft sighs, the way Noah seemed to stand still for a second, too long before speaking, as if choosing his words carefully for reasons she didn't yet understand. She had always been the one who sensed emotional changes first, the one who felt tremors long before storms arrived, and this time was no different. Every morning when Noah wrapped a quick arm around her before heading out the door, she felt him hesitate, not in a cold or distant way, but like he was holding something inside, a thought too delicate to name. She tried to brush it off at first, telling herself it was the stress of winter deadlines, or maybe just the quiet slowness that always came this time of year. But the feeling only grew. Their evenings, once filled with laughter and casual teasing, had softened into long silences broken only by the hum of the heater or the clink of dishes being stacked after dinner. Emma wanted to ask him if something was wrong, but every time she tried, she swallowed the question. Maybe she was afraid of the answer, or maybe she feared making a problem out of something that didn't exist. Still, she couldn't ignore the way Noah's eyes lingered on her. Gentle but unreadable, as if he was searching for a version of her he missed. What she didn't realize was that she was doing the same thing studying him, wondering when the last time was that she had really looked at her husband. Not just the man who helped pay bills or carried groceries or washed snow off the car, but the man she once couldn't stop staring at when they first met. One night, after a day that felt too quiet even for winter, Emma found herself wide awake while Noah slept beside her. The room was dim, lit by the blue glow of the street lamp outside their window. She listened to his breathing, steady and familiar, and yet something inside her felt uneasy, like standing at the edge of a memory she couldn't reach. She thought of the early days of their marriage when they'd talk for hours about everything and nothing, when falling asleep meant drifting off mid-conversation, when each day felt like a small adventure even if they never left the house. She loved Noah deeply. She never questioned, but she wondered if love was supposed to feel different after years passed, or if she had simply stopped paying attention to the pieces that mattered. The next evening, the snow came down heavier, painting the street in white. Noah sat by the window, lost in thought, his hands wrapped around a mug he hadn't taken a sip from in minutes. Emma watched him quietly. She had never seen him look so gentle and unsure at the same time, and something inside her told her that this moment mattered. She walked over slowly, sat beside him, and felt the tension rise in her chest. Before she could lose her courage again, she asked in a calm, steady voice, "Noah, is there something you've been wanting to tell me?" He didn't answer at first. He simply looked at her, and the look alone made the air feel heavier. It was not the look of a man holding a secret that could break them, but the look of someone afraid that speaking the truth might change everything. Emma waited, her hands cold despite the warmth of the room, her heart pounding in a way she hadn't felt in years. The pause stretched long enough for her to wonder if she had pushed too hard, if she should have let it go and pretended everything was fine. But before the panic could take over, Noah finally spoke. His voice soft and almost apologetic as he said, "There is something, yes, but I don't want you to misunderstand." Emma felt her stomach tighten, but she nodded for him to continue. Noah stared down at his hands as if the right words were hidden somewhere between his fingers. When he finally looked up, there was a quiet ache in his eyes. Not sadness exactly, but longing deep. Honest longing that startled her because she wasn't used to seeing him look so vulnerable. "I've been thinking a lot," he began, "about us, about how we've gotten used to things being the same every day. There's nothing wrong, nothing bad. It's just, I feel like we've stopped seeing each other the way we used to." Emma felt a breath catch in her throat, not because his words hurt, but because she had been thinking the same thing and hadn't dared to say it aloud. Noah took a slow breath and continued, "I guess I've had this wish I've been too afraid to share. A simple wish, but I don't know how you'll feel about it." Emma leaned closer without realizing it, pulled by curiosity and fear and love all mixed together. Noah searched her face as if checking whether she was ready to hear him. Then, with a voice so soft she almost missed it, he said, "I wish we could start fresh, not leave anything behind. Just start noticing each other again, like we did at the beginning." The words landed gently but powerfully, settling deep into Emma's chest. She had expected something heavier, something painful, but instead she felt a rush of relief she didn't know she needed. The idea was surprising, yes, but also strangely beautiful. Noah wasn't asking for escape. He wasn't saying he was unhappy or that something was missing. He was telling her he wanted to fall in love again with her. Slowly, painfully, honestly. Emma didn't speak right away. She let the weight of his wish settle, felt its warmth and its truth. She realized he had been carrying this quietly, worried she might take it as criticism. But Emma didn't feel criticized. She felt chosen. She felt seen. And for the first time in months, something inside her opened, like a window letting in the cold but refreshing winter air. She touched his hand gently and without hesitation whispered, "Tell me more." Noah didn't expect Emma to say those 3 words, "Tell me more." For weeks, he had carried the weight of his wish like a fragile glass he was afraid to drop. Now, with Emma sitting close and truly listening, his guarded thoughts began to unfold. He took a slow breath, steadying himself, because he knew once he spoke honestly, nothing would go back to the quiet way it had been. He told her that his wish wasn't born from disappointment or regret, but from a quiet fear that sneaks into long marriages without anyone noticing. He explained how he woke up one morning and realized he didn't remember the last time he had looked at her with new eyes, the way he used to when they first met. He said he missed the feeling of discovering something new about her, missed the rush of early love, missed being surprised by her laughter and moved by her stories. He missed the excitement of learning her favorite things and the comfort of being her safe place. As he spoke, Emma's chest tightened with a strange mix of sorrow and hope. She never thought Noah felt this deeply about anything he kept hidden, and hearing it now made her realize just how silent both of them had been about their fears. Noah told her he had been afraid to mention any of this because he worried it would sound like he wanted something different, or someone different, when the truth was the opposite. He wanted her, but the version of her he had stopped paying attention to. He wanted their story, but he wanted it to feel alive again. He wanted them to stop letting the days blend together and start choosing each other the way they once did so easily. Emma listened without interrupting, trying to absorb each word without letting guilt take over. She didn't want to blame herself or him. She wanted to understand. She thought back to the early years when everything felt effortless and bright, when they used to sit in their small apartment eating cheap takeout and planning a future that felt exciting just because they were dreaming it together. She remembered the nights they stayed up too late talking about childhood memories. The weekends they drove aimlessly through Vermont's back roads just to watch the trees change colors. The mornings they woke up and felt lucky just to be beside each other. Somewhere along the way, they had traded that adventure for schedules, bills, responsibilities, and long to-do lists. It wasn't bad, it was life. But Noah wanted something that life had quietly taken from them: intention. He wanted to choose love the way they once fell into it. When Noah finally paused, Emma saw how tense his shoulders were, how nervous he looked despite the soft tone of his voice. It struck her that his wish had taken courage, the kind most people didn't talk about. Wanting to start over with the same person wasn't common. Most people talked about running away or reinventing their lives. But Noah wanted to remake their love without tearing anything down. Emma reached for his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin and the small tremble in his fingers. She told him she wasn't angry or hurt. She told him he didn't sound ungrateful or unhappy. He sounded human. She admitted she had felt something shifting too, but she was too worried to ask. She confessed she had noticed the silence growing between them. Not loud or harsh, but subtle, the kind you don't see until it stretches across months. And hearing Noah speak so honestly made her realize how deeply she missed the emotional closeness they once had. Noah's shoulders softened at her words, and for the first time in a long while, he met her eyes without hesitation. Emma felt something warm bloom in her chest, something like relief mixed with courage. She asked him what starting over meant. To him, what it would look like, how they could do it without pretending the years they had built together didn't matter. Noah explained that he didn't want to erase anything. He wanted to add new meaning to what they already shared. He wanted to date her again, ask her questions he forgot to ask. Learn new things about her, go out with her without talking only about chores or work. He wanted to remember who she was outside the roles they took on: husband and wife, worker and worker, responsible adult and responsible adult. He wanted to rediscover the woman he had fallen in love with, not because she had disappeared, but because he had stopped looking. His honesty made Emma's throat tighten with emotion. She realized how many times she had assumed love would simply stay strong because it had always been there. She realized how rarely she had paused to admire the man she married. How easily she had let routine blur the edges of their connection. She didn't blame herself or Noah. She saw them as two people who had been walking the same path without noticing they had drifted a few steps apart. But now, in this quiet living room with snow drifting outside, they were choosing to step closer again. Emma told Noah she wanted to try too, not because she felt pressured, but because the idea of falling in love again made her heart beat faster, in a way she hadn't felt in years. She said yes to the possibility of early mornings that felt like beginnings instead of chores. To late-night talks that dug deeper than schedules. To the soft, uncertain beauty of learning someone you already know. She said yes to rebuilding, not because something was broken, but because something needed attention and care. She said yes to Noah's wish because it didn't come from disappointment. It came from love that wanted to grow instead of settle. Noah's face softened with relief, and Emma saw the spark she had been missing. The same spark he used to have when he looked at her during their first year together. But just as that spark brought hope, a quiet fear slipped into Emma's mind. She wondered what would happen when they began this journey. What if they discovered parts of themselves that didn't fit anymore? What if the years had changed them? Too much. She didn't say these worries aloud, but they tugged at her heart as Noah squeezed her hand gently. She hoped this journey would bring them closer. She hoped it would make their marriage stronger. But she also knew that beginnings, even beautiful ones, could be uncertain. And as she leaned against Noah's shoulder, trying to hold on to the warmth of this moment, one thought lingered quietly in the back of her mind. Starting over meant facing the truth of who they were now, not who they used to be. And she didn't know where that truth would lead. Emma and Noah decided to begin their journey of starting over with small steps, choosing moments that felt natural, yet charged with the excitement of rediscovery. They began with walks through the quiet streets of their Vermont neighborhood, pretending for a little while that they were strangers, learning each other's stories for the first time. Emma asked about his favorite childhood memories, and Noah shared tales she had never heard before, of secret adventures, small victories, and the fears he had hidden even from her. In turn, Emma spoke about dreams she had tucked away, ambitions she had shelved when life became busy with work, responsibilities, and routines. They laughed over the simple things, like a story about a dog that chased Noah through the park when he was 12. And they marveled at how easily connection could spark again when attention was given with intention. Even the quiet moments felt alive, sitting side by side on a park bench, sharing the warmth of scarves and gloves. Watching the snow settle on tree branches, they discovered a rhythm that felt both familiar and entirely new. The air between them was charged not with tension, but with possibility, a reminder that love could be intentional as well as effortless. Emma noticed the subtle ways Noah observed her, how his eyes followed the motion of her hands, How he smiled when she laughed without needing to say a word. She realized that these small observations had been missing from their lives for years. She felt a thrill in knowing that she could see him, really see him again, and that he was doing the same with her. They didn't rush. Every step was deliberate. They started having coffee at the little cafe down the street, sitting at the same table they once favored, ordering drinks they had forgotten they liked, and asking each other questions that had become foreign after years of routine conversation. Noah wanted to know her favorite flowers now, not just the colors she liked, but the scent and the memories tied to them. Emma wanted to know his fears, the kind he usually kept hidden behind jokes or casual remarks. And each answer opened new doors, doors that led to laughter, understanding, and sometimes even tears. They began spending weekends driving aimlessly, just as they had when they were newlyweds, letting the map decide the route while they talked about the little things: sunsets, favorite books, songs that made them cry. These drives reminded them how easy it could be to enjoy each other's presence without an agenda. It reminded them that love was not only about shared responsibilities, but about curiosity, wonder, and attention. Yet not all moments were easy. Some days were awkward, as if the years of habit had carved grooves too deep to erase quickly. Emma caught herself wondering if some of the intimacy they once shared had slipped away for good. Noah sometimes hesitated before speaking, unsure if revealing a new layer of himself would be welcomed or misunderstood. There were silences that felt longer than comfortable, small misunderstandings, and moments when past disappointments crept up, reminding them that starting over didn't erase history. Emma sometimes felt pangs of fear, imagining that they might find gaps between them too wide to bridge. But even in those moments, the desire to try again carried them forward. Every conversation, every walk, every shared smile became an act of bravery, a conscious choice to invest in a love that had grown quiet but had never vanished. As days turned into weeks, Emma noticed subtle changes in Noah that brought her heart to life. He laughed more freely around her, the kind of laughter that seemed to bubble up without reason, and she found herself laughing along, almost surprised at the sound. He held her hand in public again, not out of habit, but because he wanted to feel the connection, the warmth, and the reminder that they were choosing each other. Emma herself began to notice how easily her thoughts drifted to him, how she looked forward to their little adventures, how the sound of his voice in the morning felt like a promise rather than routine. They began planning small surprises for each other, gestures that required thought and attention, like leaving notes in lunchboxes or picking up little things they knew the other would love. These actions were quiet, simple, yet charged with meaning, and they slowly replaced the weight of years of unnoticed silence with the light of rediscovery. One evening, they took a drive to a nearby lake, a place they had loved years ago but rarely visited lately. The air was crisp, and the sky reflected the colors of a late autumn sunset. Emma watched Noah staring at the horizon, and she realized he was thinking deeply, probably remembering all the moments that had brought them. Here they walked along the edge of the water, hands brushing, sharing small confessions about life, hopes, and regrets. Noah told Emma how he sometimes feared that they had changed too much, that the distance between their younger selves and their present selves might be unbridgeable. Emma admitted she had felt the same fear, but she also admitted that the choice to try again mattered more than the fear itself. The realization hit them both at once. Love was not static, and starting over meant embracing who they had become, as well as who they once were. Asterisk as they sat on the dock. Emma rested her head against Noah's shoulder, feeling his heartbeat and the warmth of his presence. They spoke quietly about the future, about what it might mean to nurture their connection deliberately rather than letting life pull them apart again. Noah asked questions about her dreams she had long forgotten, and Emma asked questions about his fears he had rarely shared. Each answer deepened their intimacy, reminding them that curiosity and attention were the keys to lasting love. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the sky shifted from amber to deep purple, but neither of them moved. They were suspended in the space between past and future, between memory and hope. Emma realized that falling in love again wasn't about recreating the past. It was about noticing each other fully in the present and choosing to stay day after day with awareness and intention. But just as the moment felt perfect, a question surfaced in Emma's mind, subtle yet persistent. She wondered if, after all this rediscovery, there might be parts of them that no longer fit together, if the people they had become would create challenges they couldn't anticipate. The thought wasn't born of doubt in love, but of realism. She understood that starting over required more than desire. It required honesty, patience, and courage. She didn't speak it aloud yet, letting the warmth of the moment carry her instead. But the question lingered, quietly testing their commitment. Noah, sensing her thoughts even without words, squeezed her hand gently and whispered a soft joke, reminding her that love didn't need to be perfect to be strong. Emma smiled, letting the tension ease, yet she knew that their journey had only just begun. The lake, the sunset, the quiet laughter, they were beautiful, but the real work lay ahead. Learning to love each other again, fully and intentionally. In a world that had changed both of them by the time they drove home that evening. Neither spoke much, but the silence was not uncomfortable. It was thoughtful, reflective, and full of promise. Emma realized that the fear she felt was part of the journey, part of the honesty required to make the wish Noah had shared come true. The soft moments, the laughter, the confessions, they were all steps toward rebuilding a love that had grown, quiet steps that demanded attention and effort. She leaned against the car window, watching the snow begin to fall again, and felt hope rise in her chest. They were learning to see each other again, to notice the details they had missed for years, to fall in love slowly, deliberately, and with full hearts. And though questions lingered, she understood that this was exactly what Noah's wish had meant, a chance to choose each other again, to rediscover, to begin anew, knowing that love was not a destination but a journey. Weeks passed, and Emma and Noah found themselves settling into a rhythm that felt both tender and electric. The kind of rhythm that reminded them why they had fallen in love in the first place. They shared mornings that began with soft smiles and quiet coffee, evenings filled with laughter and easy conversation, and moments in between where they simply noticed each other, like two travelers finally paying attention to the scenery they had long ignored. One night, after a long day spent exploring a nearby town, Emma and Noah returned home to the calm of their living room. The fire cast a gentle glow, and the world outside was hushed by a soft snowfall. They sat close, there, shoulders brushing, the silence comfortable yet full of anticipation. Emma could feel the tension she had carried for weeks, the questions, the worries, the small fears about whether they had changed too much beginning to settle. Noah, sensing the quiet in her, reached for her hand, holding it as if anchoring both of them to the moment, and she realized that this was the culmination of their journey. Being present fully, without pretense or distraction, Emma took a deep breath and finally asked the question that had lingered in her mind for weeks, one that had been quietly testing the strength of their renewed connection. Noah, were you ever afraid we would fall out of love? She asked, her voice low, steady, and full of curiosity. Noah's hand tightened slightly around hers, and he looked at her with a mixture of relief and vulnerability, the kind that comes only after admitting a truth that has been carefully held inside. No, he said softly, shaking his head. I wasn't afraid we'd stop loving each other. I was afraid we already had, and neither of us noticed. Words landed in her chest like a delicate weight, a combination of honesty and regret, but also hope. She could see in his eyes the truth he had been carrying, the unspoken acknowledgement that life had, for a time, dulled the edges of their love without extinguishing it. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from the depth of understanding that passed between them. She realized that this was what Noah's wish had truly been about. Not erasing the years or pretending the quietness hadn't existed, but choosing deliberately to love again with intention and awareness. Noah's words reminded Emma that love was not a static force. It was something that required attention, care, and courage. She had spent weeks rediscovering the ways he observed her, listening to the nuances in his voice, laughing at the small jokes, and feeling the warmth of his hand in hers. Now, in this quiet moment, she understood that falling in love again was not about recreating the past, but embracing the present with all the changes, growth, and challenges that came with it. She leaned closer to him, her heart full of gratitude for his honesty and bravery, and whispered that she wanted the same thing: to never stop beginning again, to choose him every day, to continue learning about him as he continued learning about her. Noah rested his forehead against hers, his eyes soft, and whispered in return that, as long as he lived, he would choose her every first time, every second chance, every day. It was a simple promise, but it carried the weight of years, the hope of renewal, and the commitment to intentional love. They spent the next hours talking quietly, exploring the dreams and fears that had shaped their lives since they first met. Emma shared ambitions she had pushed aside, stories she had never told him, and fears she had hidden even from herself. Noah responded with openness, sharing the moments when he had felt uncertain, lonely, or inadequate, but also the dreams that had carried him forward. The room felt charged with the energy of rediscovery, each confession and story building a bridge that spanned the years of quiet distance between them. They laughed over memories that had once seemed trivial but now felt precious, the small moments that had shaped their connection. And they planned small ways to continue nurturing each other in the days ahead. Every word, every glance, every touch was a reaffirmation that love was alive, that it could grow stronger even after years of routine and quietness, and that choosing each other intentionally could bring them closer than they had ever been before. As the evening deepened into night, Emma realized that their journey of starting over had given them more than they had expected. It had given them clarity, patience, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to be partners in life. They had confronted fears, admitted vulnerabilities, and celebrated the small joys that had been lost in the busyness of everyday life. They had relearned the importance of noticing each other, of listening carefully, and of responding with thoughtfulness and care. And in doing so, they had found a love that was neither fragile nor perfect, but resilient, intentional, and alive. Emma understood now that the wish Noah had made was not about fantasy or escape. It was about commitment, courage, and the choice to invest in love actively. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years, a quiet certainty that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, renewed and intentional in their devotion. Before they went to bed that night, they shared a quiet moment by the window, watching the snow fall and the world outside turn soft and white. Emma rested her head against Noah's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and thought about how far they had come. The fear, the uncertainty, the awkwardness, and the doubts had all been part of the process, part of the journey, toward a love that was conscious and alive. Noah kissed the top of her head gently, whispering that this was just the beginning, that they had a lifetime of first times ahead of them if they chose. Emma smiled, feeling a deep warmth in her chest, realizing that this promise, the simple act of choosing each other every day, was more powerful than anything they had imagined. Their love was not defined by the years they had already lived, but by the intentionality they now brought to each moment, the courage to begin again, and the vulnerability they were willing to share. As they finally moved to bed, hand in hand, the sense of renewal settled over them like a soft blanket. There was no grand declaration, no dramatic gesture. Just two people who had chosen each other fully, who had faced the quiet truths of life and love, and who had emerged closer, more connected, and deeply committed. Emma realized that starting over had not erased the past, but it had strengthened their present and created hope for the future. The snow outside continued to fall, silent and gentle, reflecting the quiet beauty of their renewed connection. In that simple, unremarkable moment, the warmth of the fire, the softness of blankets, the closeness of two hands intertwined, Emma and Noah understood that love could always be rediscovered, that every day offered a chance to fall in love again, and that the wish Noah had spoken months ago had not only been granted, but had transformed their lives. They drifted to sleep with hearts full, knowing that their story was not about perfection, but about choice, resilience, and the quiet, unending power of love that grows deeper with each intentional moment they shared together.